morning. It's 9 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to make the following statement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging we're in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'll introduce the members of the panel. To my far left is Mr. Maurice Therian. My immediate left is Ms. Linda McFadgen. My name is Stu McPherson. I'll be chairing the hearing. The secretary for today's hearing is Ms. Kara Belshaw, and representing the City of Winnipeg Assessment Taxation Department, Mr. Merrick Froelich. We'll be hearing applications for the revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application. We'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony. Anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons and assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council. It's independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have. Then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. Just as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Please swear the parties in, please.
Please state your name. Do you swear the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? The swear? Please. And do you swear the evidence you present today is the truth, and the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Morning, Mr. Reck. You're representing the tenants for 5 properties today, and it's the amount of assessed rental value that we're dealing with. Thank you. And the first property we're going to hear today will be 1010 Arlington. So when you're ready, Mr. Assessor, if you would please.
Yep. File number 174968 for 2018 business assessment roll year. Address is 1010 Arlington. Business ID number is 17735. And the tenant is Winters Auto Body Limited. Initially, the total ARV was set at $219,780, using 22,004 square feet, with an overall ARV of $9.99. Base calculation was the premise area of 22,004 square feet, using $7.94 as a base ARV per square foot. And total occupancy cost was $45,094. Rounded up, that became $219,780. And what we'd like to recommend is we'd like to recommend the assessed value be changed to $210,120 as per the 2018 realty decision.
Thank you. Mr. Reck, questions?
No, Mr. Chairman. Okay, you didn't ask.
Any questions from the panel?
No, thank you.
Just one for me, the
Okay.
revised.
I'd like to make a revision, please. I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. Actually, the assessed value is $210,060.
460.
I made a mistake with rounding, and I forgot to write this one down, so I do apologize for that.
And what does that represent for base ARV?
The base, it was 210,060.
No, the base.
The base is, the base ARV is still 750. I made an error with the rounding,
750 instead of 795.
No,
$7.94.
initially the 794
Right.
was the model generated one.
Right.
The recommendation $7.50.
750, thank
But
you.
the $60 difference was within rounding error that Mr. Rack brought to my attention.
Thanks. Mr. Rack, any further? Thank you.
So he's okay with that?
Apparently.
You're okay?
Yes.
So I wanted to hear, Gil?
So the next property we'll deal with is 2026 Pembina Highway, and there's a preliminary issue with this, Mr. Assessor?
Yes, there is. It's regarding the income and expense mailer that we received for 2015. We're asking for the assessor request the burden of proof be placed on the applicant for the cooperation, 53(3)B of the Manitoba Municipal Assessment Act. And if the reduction in assessment is ordered, that it be followed by 54(3.2) of the MMA.
And the basis for that is,
Well, if you look at page 2, this is an owner-occupied property. And we have, so the first section, it is owner-occupied, I acknowledge that, but it's not listed as being owner-occupied. And one of the requirements for us to create a model for the 2018 assessment appeal period is to have expenses listed. And as you can see in the middle section, there are no expenses listed for the subject property. So it's hard for us to generate, proper occupancy costs if we don't know what the expenses are for the subject property. So that's shown on page 2. Page 3 shows a signature of it, which is similar to the application of Mr. J.E. Rosso. And what I have on page 3 is just the consistency in 2014. It's owner occupied, but they're also claiming that there's a net lease in place for 2014. And 2016, the mailers, once again, they've been non-compliant in filling out the income and expense mailer information with regards to occupancy costs. I'm now referencing the title search, just showing that who the entity name, and that the owner, that this property is owner occupied. And the last 2 pages of the title search showing that who's the registered owner of the company and that there's a mortgage taken out. On this basis, that's why I'm asking for non-compliance to be awarded and for the penalty to be in place in 2018.
thank you. Mr. Rack, questions of the assessor?
Yes, do you have a registered, copy of the registered letter?
No, I do not. There was not one sent out for the subject property because they had returned the information, but it was inaccurate information that they had sent us.
I have some rebuttal evidence, Mr. Attorney.
Is it a rebuttal or is it going to be part of your presentation?
No, I'm accepting the recommendation.
No, but we're actually just questioning the assessor
This is
on
about non-compliance.
his. So we'll hear from you on your non-compliance
Okay,
when we're done with the questioning.
okay,
So rather than rebuttal, if that's your presentation,
okay.
we'll handle it that way. So did you have any further questions then?
No.
Mr. Thurian?
So basically, you got a reply, but you're not satisfied that it complies with the requirement, and no follow-up was sent
No,
when there was no information provided.
that is correct.
That is your evidence?
That is our evidence.
Thank you.
Ms. McFadden?
I have no further questions.
Just, I guess, kind of following up on that, so this owner wasn't notified that he was not in compliance,
That's correct.
and you've included the 2014 return,
Yeah,
same situation,
same situation, yes.
and was there non-compliance at that time?
No, we hadn't asked for it at the time because there was a recent board decision that had taken place with regards to bowling, with regards to what we are entitled to ask for and not ask for, and it was supported by the Court of Queen's Bench. So moving forward from that decision, the department and the organization has decided to ask for non-compliance on these matters.
Okay, Mr. Brock, we'll hear from you now, please.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I take your copy of that when you're done?
When you're ready, Mr. Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you see, I've supplied a copy of all the income and expense mailers that have been sent in since 2006. That's as far back as the information procedure goes. 16.1 is a request for information. That's all it states, so you can see that they've been compliant for sending information all the way back to 2006. If you turn to the second page, that's the board revision order for the realty. Mr. Pollock was the assessor on that, and at that time, the first page, you'll see that he was asking for non-compliance. If you turn to the next page, the final page, you'll see that section 54, 3.2 is basically the effect of providing no information, and that the board at the time had decided that would be denied, that the owner has been compliant over the years, supplying information. If there was more information that was required, another request could have been made. The property is owner occupied, and actually once it's owner occupied, there's the income expense mailer is not used by the department, and actually the department does not use the utilities from realty properties to determine the cost. That actually goes to the utility boards, and the numbers are derived from the utility board. That's why all expenses are exactly the same for all properties. So I believe that the information provided that the owner has been compliant, and the non-compliance should not be granted. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Froelich, questions for the applicant?
So, Mr. Rack, are you claiming that we don't use none of the expense information with regards to generating expense models?
That's correct.
And how can you say that?
Because I spent 25 years in the department, and I know they go to the utility board and use those numbers that are come from the different utilities, and not the actuals from the income and expense mailers, because I've argued using the income and expense mailers information for BA before, and the board has decided to use the department's numbers and not the actuals on the property.
Okay, no other questions.
Mr. Therian.
Just your first page, make sure I'm not confused. You say 2017 not sent. Am I talking about the wrong cycle? 2016 was sent? You follow what I'm saying?
Well, 2017 hasn't
Okay,
been sent yet.
okay, that's the one.
Because we just came into 18.
Yeah,
So
okay.
they'll be requesting it within the next month or so.
Yeah, okay, that's what you meant.
Yes,
Okay.
because as you see on the left, it says create new, so they haven't created one yet.
Yeah, how long have you been away from the assessment department?
7 years now.
Well, the only comment I'd like to make, what was done when you were there doesn't mean that that's what is done today, so
That's true.
that evidence bothers me in the sense that I don't think it's relevant. That's all, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Ms. McFadden.
I don't have any questions.
I don't think I had any further questions either. So we'll ask the parties to step out briefly, please, while we deliberate on this issue.
Thank you, sir. No problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
Waited till they came in.
Yeah, so, because get some more play money.
The mics are already on.
Okay. No problem.
Call the hearing back to order. Okay, we have deliberated and we have decided that we are going to deny the assessor's request for the non-compliance. We're also going to suggest that, Mr. Rack, you caution your client that you should be filling out requested information if it's available, and
He's been scorned about that.
thank you.
It makes all of our lives a lot easier.
Oh, I've made that perfectly clear to him.
Okay, Mr. Froelich, if you would please give
Sure
us your
thing.
evidence on this property.
Yep. For file number 174970.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, which property again?
We're doing
Highway.
2026 Pembina. We're doing the order you requested.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Once again, file number 174970. Roll year 2018, 2026 Pembina Highway, business ID number 913, Lieutenant Super Lube Limited. Initially, the ARV value was 116,100, using a total area of 6,163 square feet, with an overall ARV of 1884. The base, using the 6163, the base ARV per square footage was 1649. Total occupancy cost was 14,483 to come up with the 116,100. I'd like to make a recommendation to reduce the value to 97,980. And that concludes my formal presentation.
Are you going to tell us what the basis of the 97,980 is?
Oh, it's a reduction of market rents from the 1884, because there's 3 different PIDs on this property, so the blended rate for the 3 of them would be, or just bear with me here for 1 sec, would be 1387 is the drop of the market rent.
Thank you. Mr. Rapp, questions for the assessor?
No, sir.
Mr. Thurin?
That includes removal of the air conditioning as well.
That is correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's my question. I have no questions. Mr. Rack, did you have a presentation?
No. I
You're
accept the recommendation.
in agreement with that recommendation? Thank you. Next, we're going to do 3404 Portage. Preliminary issue with this one, Mr. Assessor?
Similar to the previous one, if you look on page 2, the expense information is not provided by the property owner. And then if you look on page 3, there's inconsistent information. He has both the owner occupied box, and then he also has it listed as a step-up lease. Now, if you look towards the back, information's consistent. I'm referencing the Manitoba picture. Just showing the company information, showing that, you know, it's a numbered company, and that the registered owner is James Rossell, and the location at 3400 Portage Avenue. Title search shows that that it's registered as a numbered company, that it's listed above. And that concludes my formal presentation with regards to non-compliance.
Questions, Mr. Rapp?
Is there a registered letter for this property?
No, there was not.
That's all my questions.
Mr. Thurin?
No, my question is the same. You've, as the last one, you did receive a response, but there was no follow-up letter sent.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Ms. McFadden?
No questions.
Just one, you included the realty board
Yep.
decision.
Yep.
I don't see a request for non-compliance on that.
That is correct. Once the decision was made with regards to the Court of Queen's Bench, we had moved forward as a department asking for non-compliance going forward with regards to this issue.
So the Court of Queen's Bench decision you're referring to relates to the business assessment?
Relates to realty and expenses, what we're entitled to ask for in terms of information. Because we looked at the 4 points of failure, and one of the failures is with regards to providing us expense information with regards to the property. And it's with the creation of the assessment roll. And so without having the correct, we use the income and expense failure information for realty for business assessment.
Okay, each hearing is de novo,
Yeah.
so we'll ask the two parties to step up for a moment, please. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Same presentation?
Yes,
Yep.
and you already dealt with the, Mr. Ruda didn't ask for the non-compliance, so I wouldn't ask the question, bring any presentation forward on that.
I'm sorry, I don't want to deny you making a presentation though, so is there anything you'd like to speak to?
Well, Mr. Ruda did not, as you stated in the board revision, the order that I applied did not ask for non-compliance, and that's about it.
Mr. Froelich, questions for the applicant?
There's no questions.
Mr. Therian,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. McFadden?
I guess my question for the city would be, how is the applicant supposed to know?
How's it
How is the applicant supposed to know?
to fill out the income and expense mailer?
Yeah,
Well, we send out mailer information, we're asking questions with regards to what he owns and occupies the building, responsible for expenses for the building. We wouldn't go throughout the procedure of asking for that information if it was not valuable,
that you have for the past 10 years.
because we've been entitled to, because this has always been a point of contention. We seek legal counsel, we took it to the Court of Queen's Bench. Based on that, the decision at the Court of Queen's Bench, we're moving forward with that. And we'll continue to move forward with that for the 2020 reassessment.
However, the applicant has no way of knowing that happened.
As Mr. Rack here has stated already, moving forward, we're asking all the applicants for the assessment appeals to to avoid this exercise moving forward, to fill out the information properly.
Thank you.
I just have one question, if you don't mind. So you haven't supplied the Court of Queen's Bench to examine what the contention was and how they decided, whatever the decision was today?
We have a summary of what they're looking for, and I could go through it, but we've all heard,
Yeah, no, that's all right, no, that's it, don't worry about it.
you know, all of us have heard, like you said, Mr. Rack, all of us have heard the presentation on many occasions.
Okay, now I will ask the parties to step up for a moment, please.
Thank you.
No problem.
No choice.
I'll call the hearing back to order. We have deliberated and we are going to deny the assessor's request for non-cooperation. So, Mr. Assessor, if you would give us your evidence for this property, please.
Sure thing, just let me.
Mr. Rack, I know this is the same owner as previously, so
That was
he has
Rick.
been admonished for all his properties?
Each one individually.
Thank you.
File number 174958. Address is 3404 Portage Avenue. Business ID number is 4872. Tenant is Superlube Limited. Initially, the ARV value was $115,380, using a total area of 7,287 square feet, with an over ARV of 1583. The subject area shows the three different areas located for this premise. Market rents vary from $13.83, $13.76, and $13.66. Model generated, none of these spaces have air conditioning. So our total, which gives us a total value of $115,380. I'd like a recommendation to reduce the value to $94,740. And that's using an overall rental area of $10.97 as per the board decision in 2018 for the realty.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, questions for the assessor?
No questions. I accept the recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Therian?
No, that's fine.
Mr. Fadgen?
Fine.
And so no further presentation, Mr. Rack, you're in agreement with this recommendation?
Correct.
Thank you. That will bring us to 1585 St. Mary's Road. When you're ready, Mr. Assessor.
File number 174957. Address is 1585 St. Mary's Road. Business ID number is 51734. Total ARV is 72,600, using a total premise area of 3,946 square feet. Overall ARV is 1840. Subject area shows the two different premise areas here, with the total occupancy cost equaling $8,012 to come up with a total ARV of 72,600. I'd like to reduce the value for 2018 to $59,760. And that concludes my formal presentation.
Did you give us the overall rate? That
$13.10.
$13.10, thank you. Mr. Rack, questions?
Yes, where did you, how did you determine the annual rental value? Was that actually from the business assessment screen, or did you come up with that number?
We have it listed for the premise area for both properties, so when I ran the report, it showed the Superlube listed for both areas, the main floor and the storage area in the basement.
No further questions, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Therian?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you.
I'm fine.
So the two premise IDs are both Superlube. One of them is storage?
One of them's the lower level.
But it's an overall rate of $13.10 that you're
Yeah.
recommending.
That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, did you have a presentation on this?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pollock has a copy of what it is already. Chairman, as you'll see, it's a super loop. I'm not sure where the, Mr. Pollock got the business assessment numbers from. As you'll see, just below the picture is the actual roll, as a business assessment screen, which is on the internet, and what the actual owner was assessed at from his bill. And you'll see that, as you've seen in the previous loop centers, that the business assessment only applies to the main floor. So you'll see the area is 1973 square feet. So it was basically assessed at, for 2018, for business assessment at 37,380. And below that, you'll see comparisons that I have for repair shops, and the average of all those repair shops that are listed, and this is actually comparables that assessors have presented for these properties on the realty appeals, and there's an average of the average is actually 1361 a square foot on the main floor, so slightly above what the assessor's using. Super loops are all leased, even the ones that the owner doesn't occupy or the owner doesn't own, like that all the leases apply to the main floor space only. There'd be no possible way that an owner would lease out just the main floor with the oil pits that are basically about 6 feet high, and there's holes through the floor in order to change oil. So if they release that main floor only, if you turn the page, you'll see that I'm using $14 a square foot. I just brought it up to $14 a square foot, plus the occupancy costs coming out to $31,627, and divisible by 12, the annual rental value should be $31,620. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Froelich, questions for the applicant?
So, have you included, none of these are exclusively oil change shops, are they?
Yes, they are.
They are exclusively oil change, they don't do any other work?
No, they don't.
So, you're comparable here, Maxim Muffler, they don't fix mufflers, they only do oil changes?
No, they're repair shops. They'll do oil changes, they'll change tires. I don't know exactly everything they do, but they're multiple purpose shops.
Okay, so you have any Mr. Loop comparables or any ones that are more?
No, the Mr. Lubes are actually, there's only 4 of them. 2 of them are pad sites, and the other 2 are leases that are high because they're turnkey operations and franchises.
Okay, and what are the leases on those ones?
I didn't supply that information in my brief today.
If I could speak to educate the board on how the lube shops are valued from an income and expense mailer perspective, because if you look at my comparables, okay.
Is this got to do with questioning now, Mr.
Well,
Froelich?
Our position is that.
Perhaps you could save that for a summation. I'll give you an opportunity for a summation. If you would just finish with your questioning.
Okay, fair enough. So you've included no specific Mr. Lube or oil change only comparable on your brief, correct?
That's correct, because it is possible in the if this property did become vacant, it would be possible to put heavy sheets of steel over the openings, and you could put some lifts in there, and you could do the same type of work as all the other, the same as the other facilities. I'm sure that if that happened, if that lube shop didn't survive, it would probably change into something else, and you could put a sheet of steel over the hole and actually use it for a repair shop. So I think if the lube center went under, it'd probably turn into a repair shop. But they're basically service related. Do site-specific lube shops have higher market rents than overall vehicle service garage? I think that's a part for your summation. I don't have any lube shop stuff as evidence.
That concludes my questions.
Okay, Mr. Thurin?
Do super lube shops not do work over and above changing oil? Because your comparables really have a variety of what people do here, and I was wondering what super lube does.
I think they might change tires, I'm not sure.
But they don't,
Well, they'll change oil filters, and they'll change.
they won't do
light bulbs.
brakes or stuff like that?
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
There's usually another facility that they partner with kind of thing, or there'll be another shop on the same location. I know two of them are actually pad leases. The one on
Yeah.
Kevin Highway is a pad lease, because it's on Boyd Autobodies there, Tim Hortons is there. The one on Nairn Street is actually pad lease, because it's part of Hyundai Motors that's next door, so that's pad lease. And then the other one on St. Mary's or St. Anne's, there is actually a muffler shop on the same site also.
Okay, my second question is, because I'm a little, maybe confused is not the right word, but I don't understand exactly what's happening here. On previous assessments on BA for these properties, was it similar to what the city's doing on this, or was it along these lines of what you're appealing? I'm trying to see what the consistency is between the one year and the other.
Well, you can see by the other lube shops that have been presented today, it's
No,
all.
but I'm talking about this property.
Yes, but it's been consistent that they only assess the main floor.
So the previous cycle on this one was strictly main floor on this one?
I can't answer that question because this is a new property for me. I never had it the last go around.
Okay,
But
so
you
we
can
don't know how this was treated before.
No, but we know today that the business assessment, and that's a screen I've captured, how the property was assessed for business assessment, and the other similar properties today are treated the same way. I haven't really seen business assessment, and even if someone had a retail outlet with a basement space, because I have a couple of those, and there's never a business assessment on the basement space.
But these lube outfits, it's a pit normally, and so that's never assessed when the people work under?
No, not that space. They're all the lube centers are leased on main floor only. And when you lease one, it's the same as retail. If you have a basement space and a retail space and it's a single occupant building that's one story, the landlord doesn't ask for rent for the basement.
But
I mean-
we've made different decisions on that. I'm just trying to get a handle on what we're dealing with here, because obviously it's totally different from what the city's providing, so I'm trying to get a handle on where you're coming from.
Well, I don't know where the numbers came from the city, because the city assessment is what I've shown in the middle of my page one. That is the assessment that the owner received based on those numbers and based on 1973 square feet on the main floor.
Mr. Chairperson, I could bring some clarity to the situation here. So in the application form, I only have one copy of it, but in the application form, the assessed value that was filled out by the property owner and Mr. Rack shows assessed value of $72,600. So this would have been the information that we would have sent out to, I didn't include it with my package, but if you actually look at this documentation here, it clearly shows that the ARV value is $72,600, which is consistent with what I presented here on my cover page.
Right,
Yeah,
so-
but this is not what the appellant, all I was trying to find out, the appellant didn't say they did not receive that. He's saying this is not how it's been assessed in the past.
I filled that out in error. I probably filled it out at the same time I took that number probably off the realty. But this is how it's assessed. That's the bill he got based on 1973 square feet. That's taken right from the assessment website.
When was it taken from the assessment website? When did-
3 days ago.
So that's what shows on the assessment website?
That's correct.
Are you aware of that, Mr. Crowe?
I was just aware of this right now, but our information shows.
So you can't confirm or refute that? You
I
haven't
can't.
looked at the website?
No, I cannot, but I do know that the application was filled out at $72,600, and if we actually take a recess, I could probably go to the office and print up the original letters that we sent out showing the $72,600. because our system went of I can't explain why there's two different numbers on our website and what this is showing here, but I do know that the application states 72,600. When I printed out my brief, it shows 72,600, and if we took a recess, I could probably regenerate the original letter that went out to the property owner
I have
showing
it
the
here in the
72,600. You have it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Did you have any questions, Ms. McClatchy?
So basically, our bone of contention is you're charging $13 or thereabouts for 2 floors, and you're saying it's $14 for 1 floor.
That's correct.
That's-
I mean, the argument could be made if 2 floors can be rented. The
Right.
question would become, what if I came in and I'm gonna rent it's vacant and I'm gonna rent it, and I came to the owner and said, I don't need the basement, I only need the main floor, I'll throw a piece of steel over the hole, and I'll change tires and do repairs on the main floor. I only want the main floor. So if he's gonna lease it at 2 different rates and 2 different spaces, then I'll take the main floor, I don't want the basement. I mean, $13 a square foot for a basement is ridiculous. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's a pit. If you were down there and saw oil all over the floor and the tanks down there, and it's basically, I had to duck to go over some of the electrical that's on the ceiling. And the other thing is that there is no separate entrance to get to the basement. You'd have to walk right in the shop and go down some stairs in the basement. So part of the criteria for renting space out in the basement is it has to have its own entrance.
Thank you.
I have one further question. So how was the real estate, I think that you mentioned that, but I would miss it. How was the real estate assessed on this one?
Real estate is assessed at using the basement space too, and I've argued that space shouldn't be included, and actually, a lot of the board decisions have been presented.
But on this one, did you tell me what happened on this one?
The board reduced it.
They reduced it, but they,
Well, they never stated exactly
okay.
how they did it, like they took the basement out, I used a higher rent for the main floor, but the realty decision didn't exactly state that the basement space wasn't used. You may have been involved in some of those appeals. I don't know, but there was always an argument that you can't have 2 rates, one on the basement, and especially at almost the same rate. $13 a square foot for a 6-foot-high oil pit doesn't make any sense. I'm sure when the department, because I know they have a new computer system, I can almost guarantee that next year you won't see this problem, that they'll adjust that.
No, I disagree with that completely.
Okay.
And I'll
Thank you.
provide evidence of that moving forward.
Mr. Rock, this is the 3rd super loop we've heard this morning.
Correct.
The other 2, were they based only on the main floor?
That's correct.
So there was no rate applied to the pit
No.
and storage area, and they're similar to this one?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Froelich, did you wish to make a summation?
Yes, I would, but I would contradict Mr. Rock's statement here because it clearly shows there's different pits here, there's different areas. If we look at 3404 Portage Avenue, we went on direct decision, and then you can see the different pits there, and some of that includes storage. So just looking at the last one that we looked at 3404 Portage Avenue. Should I look at the one previous to that? Because there is some inconsistency, but clearly the last one that we just heard had basement space storage. And when moving forward from that,
How is that clear, sorry?
so if you look at 3404 Portage Avenue, there's 3 pits
Right?
listed there. So the 1383 is the basement area. The last one, 33905,
Okay.
that's the basement area.
You said so.
So that's the basement area, but why does it differ from the main floor area then?
Because I think when we put it into when we entered it into the roll, that's what they gave us for square footage for that area. Sometimes they're identical, sometimes they're not. For example, in my summation, when we look at 226 St. Anne's, the information that we have here is that it shows that the square footages are different. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. It's based on what we get when we enter into the role. See the Pembina High location. If we look at the Pembina Highway, this is only looking at the brake shop portion of it. It's not actually looking at the lube shop. So if we look at the other one here, if we look at the realty decision, we got 6,163 square feet at $13.87. We have both the main floor and the basement at $16 a square foot for 2026 Pembina Highway. And I have the board decision I can work up here. So we do differentiate them. And as I go through my summation, I'll actually explain some of the history behind it, because it is a challenge for the department dealing with these type of properties. And I acknowledge that. And actually, if you look, this will not be a true summation per se, and Mr. Rack had said that there's a pad lease. So I'm reading the income and expense mailer for 1,076 Nairn Avenue.
What do you?
Well, I'm providing history on how we do valuation for lube shops. Because the income and expense mailer.
Well, I think you should keep that in generalities rather than trying to enter new evidence. This is a property we haven't dealt with, so if you just want to.
Well, yes and no, because I didn't realize that Mr. Rock was going to have an issue with regards to it, and so I thought he was going to accept the recommendation, because I would have presented this in my evidence. But I will be in a more formal matter. So when we look at my comparables for lube shops, because this is a challenge for us. Because, for example, on 1,076 Nairn Avenue, they report the base rent for the main floor at $25 a square foot. However, they only claim leased area of 1,664 square feet. So if you do the breakdown, because I looked at the realty for this, for the leasable area that we have in our model generated, we have 3,072 square feet. So if we take that $25 and we spread it over the actual square footage, including the basement area, the average rent for that works out to $13.30.
Excuse me, are you talking about 1384 Regent?
No, I'm talking about 1,076 Nairn Avenue.
Which is one of his comparables.
Oh,
Which is one of my comparables. Okay. 226 St. Anne's. What happens, there's a Mr. Lube shop where they report on the income and expense mailer, they report a monthly rent of $3,666.65 using a square foot area of 2,022 square feet. Looking at the property, looking at that pit, that works out to $21.76 a square foot for the area that we're reporting. However, if we actually look at the entire space for it, it works out to $13.23. And the reason why I know this so...
Sorry, where's your 1323?
I think it's the base.
The
Before
base,
15,
232.
It's occupancy cost, right?
Shouldn't.
232 St. Anne's, okay? The Mr. Lube there, we have it reported at 2,022 square feet. At
But
21.
what did you tell us about 226? Is that not 1598 that you're reporting?
There's two of them there. There's a Mr. Lube and there's a Midas Muffler at that location. Because there's 226 and 232, but they're on the same income and expense mailer. Because you have two businesses on one realty property.
But this 3869 is a reported area,
Yeah,
and the rent is 1598 for 3869.
yeah.
You're saying that it's actually only
No,
2022?
that is the Midas Muffler, which is a VSG, which is not an oil change shop. The next one on that lease, because
So the 3869 at 1598 is the actual lease? for
is the
that
actual
property.
lease for the entire space. On that same site, there's a Mr. Lube located there. And what they reported is their main floor space, which is a blended rate that includes the the main floor in the storage area, they're reporting $21.76 for that entire space, which factors in the storage space. And while we realize you can't lease the space, but our history has shown that these exclusive oil shops have a higher rent than a standard VSG. And while I know this explicitly, I also have one on, just bear with me. It's a new Mr. Lube at the Seasons of Tuxedo. And with that property there, the actual lease in place for the main floor works out to $35.80 a square foot. And that's utilizing, so if you look at the rent there,
Excuse me, which location is that again?
that's, this is my summation.
Oh, I just didn't hear what that meant.
Okay, no problem. So the Mr. Lube at the Seasons of Tuxedo,
Oh, Seasons of Tuxedo.
yeah, shows an annual rent of $67,419, only utilizing 1,883 square feet. However, with that property, it has a mezz space, it has the same storage, the same oil pit as everything else, and it has a full second floor space. So our model generated rent for that property is $15,023. So even though the mailer shows they're only reporting 1,883, from a valuation perspective, we want to be consistent. And so we're showing our model rent at being $1523, and that was an appeal at the municipal board. So moving forward, these are our challenges, and so there's a difference between the Mr. Lube shops and a standard VSG. But to imply that we should include that the storage space as a throw-in would be incorrect. And I have enough evidence here, and I have other examples here to show that. And my comparables, and two of my comparables here are a designated oil change shop. I'm experienced with these, I put these onto the roll, and I'm confident in our evaluation process, and I'm confident in the recommendation that I'm making of $59,760, which is consistent, which is a reasonable cut based on the original ARV value of $72,600. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you have to be well aware that a lot of these lube shops, I'm not aware of the one in Tuxedo, but I imagine Tuxedo would have much higher rent, and the lube shops are franchises. Franchises are always, they charge more because they're turnkey operations, signage, everything like that. Actually, I was here with Jonathan, one of the assessors, and he admitted that one of his comparables on Pembina Highway was a pad lease. Pad leases are not comparable because they're built to suit by the owner of the property, and they're extremely high in rent because they're renting the building and the land together, and there could be other stipulations regarding what the rent involves and includes. You'll see that Mr. Bullock did mention 3404 Portage, and you'll see that the areas, all these lube shops, the main floor and the basement are the exact same size. The basement is not smaller than the main floor, at least the ones that I presented today. Again, I made the argument that the basement space would be unleasable if you just wanted the main floor. The lube shops are typically, all the ones I've examined are main floor space only. And as I've shown on my brief, that the actual assessment from the assessment screen is based on the main floor only. And I believe the information I provided using slightly higher rent than the assessor. I'm asking that value be accepted today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is that with us?
Yes, I think we should stay.
Okay, we're going to take a very short break here before we deal with the last property. Okay, I'll call the hearing back to order. Next property we have to deal with is 1384 Regent Avenue West, and I understand there's a preliminary issue on this as well, Mr. Assessor?
That is correct.
Can you deal with that first, please?
Yep, for sure. So if you look at page 2 of my brief, we show the mailer showing that none of the expenses have been filled out with regards to this property. We don't know if it's owner occupied or if it's partially. No expenses listed here, no rents listed here for total rents in terms of rental income. Page 2 shows it was signed by the president of the organization. And so page 4 of my brief shows inconsistent information. We have super lube and super lube break. We have it as, so showing owner occupied, and then we show it as a net lease. And then we have other net leases here in place here, showing none of the expenses being shown for annual property expense tax recovery, annual general expenses, and the utilities. Page 6 shows a registered number and the entity name of Starlight Auto Mall. The director information is the president, it's James Rosso. Page 8 shows the status of title, Starlight Auto, and the registered number that the company is listed under, and some other aspects of the lease. And that concludes my presentation with regards to non-compliance.
Mr. Rapp, questions?
No register letter?
The register letter.
That's it.
Mr. Thury?
Yes, page 12, I see on the real estate assessment, if I'm looking, well, that's not the same property.
Oh, it's, well,
No.
my recommendation's based on,
Yeah, 1384 Regent?
That's right.
Okay, and that, there was no request for non-compliance
no,
at at the real estate?
that is correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I have no question.
I just wanted clarification on this return. There's, what, 9?
It's a strip mall.
It's a strip mall?
Yeah, it's a strip mall, and the super lube and super lube break is a part of the strip mall.
I can answer that more accurately.
Okay.
There's the lube. Super Tune and Brake is a separate building. Enterprise, I know it's Casting Automotive, the vacant space, and the Super Transmission, it's another building.
So the one we're dealing with is the Super Lube, 2,096 square feet?
Yes. And then the Vicker Chev and the vacant space is another building. And the original George's, I think was an old Robin's Donuts, it's a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's another building.
I actually have some pictures here,
Yeah.
if you want to see. Yeah, because there's, is it
1, 2,
3, 4 different
4,
buildings?
5 different buildings.
Yeah.
So if I may, this 2096 is main floor,
That's correct.
and okay,
Okay.
sorry, I guess we're getting into the valuation of it, and we're still
For
dealing
realty.
with the non-compliance, so
Yeah.
don't want to go any further. So, once again, we'll have a brief recess on this.
He wants to do it, so.
I'm sorry, once again, please, we'll hear from you, Mr. Rapp.
You've already talked about the decision. Sorry I didn't make more copies, I actually ran out of paper this morning. On the second page of that, you'll see.
That's fine, because I think I included.
Yeah, this is included in the
Oh, is
assessment
it?
brief.
Yeah, I got the realty decision there, so.
Yes, the realty decision, it's just the,
Yeah, same thing,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Okay, you got it.
And then the second page is
Do you
your,
want to see
Yeah,
it?
those are all.
No, I included that, but yes, It's only 2 pages long?
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah,
You don't
so
want
it's just, yeah, it's not good.
income and expense.
It's just got the second page.
Yeah,
Second
I'm good
page.
with that.
He doesn't wanna see it, do you
Oh, here,
want this
here,
one?
here.
No, I'm gonna put this as
Because I
an
included
exhibit.
that in my brief? Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. That's furniture, no.
No, it didn't.
Okay, I'll call the hearing back to order. We have decided that we are going to deny the request for non-cooperation, so when you're ready, Mr. Assessor,
Yeah.
we'll hear from you, please.
File number 174959, 1384 Regent Avenue West. Business ID number is 31239. It's Super Tune and Brake Incorporated. Initial ARV was 64,980, using an area of 4,148 square feet with an over ARV of 1567. We have the base rent at 1364, with occupancy costs at 8,421, comes up with 64,980. And I'd like to make a recommendation to reduce the value to 60,300 as per the realty decision for 2018. And I don't believe I created, and give me a chance here to figure out the rent. $12.50.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, questions for the assessor?
No question.
Mr. Therian?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. McFadden?
No questions?
I have no questions. Thank you. Mr. Rack, your presentation?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Your acceptance of this recommendation?
That's correct.
Thank you. And that will conclude our matters. The decisions will come in registered mail in due course.